Hey guys, Nick Drossos.
Dr. Andrew Steinberg.
And welcome to another episode of
Have the balls to talk about it.
And this week our guest Suda
HALDER.
Halder. Thank you for coming on the show. And
Thank you for inviting me.
we're going to be talking about how to build a financial portfolio through real estate. I don't know much about it. I've been wanting to get into it. Andrew, do you have real estate?
I have no real estate, no, but it's always something that we talk about trying to get into, and everyone talks about it as a great source of income, passive income, and a great source of investment. So we were both of us were super interested in it, and we brought you on. But first, we want to hear your story. How did you come to all of this? Take us way back.
Well, I'm not going to take very far back, but let's just say the day I arrived in Canada, I was only 13 years old, and then...
Where did you come from?
Bangladesh. And approximately within 3 years time period, on my 16th birthday, my father passed away. And my father, he was my guru, my mentor, because he was the second largest landlord in the city where he was born. So he had the expertise, he had the knowledge about it, but I didn't have enough time to learn from it. And when I came to Canada, one of the difference was is that it's not the same culture, it's not the same way of doing or dealing with real estate. So I had to start from basically deep down, understanding about income properties. And what I did as a first, since I didn't have my mentor with me, so I started to work as a handyman. I would go work.
This is even as a teenager, you're talking.
As a teenager, yes. During my high school years, I would go fix or repair here and there, do some paintings for landlords. But that was for me to understand and learn not only the aspect of owning real estate, but the problems they deal with it. You know. And Andrew, I have to say this today. Over last 13 years of being an entrepreneur. I have to say entrepreneur because I'm more in the real estate investment, although I do have a license as a realtor, I do have a license as a contractor. But when you're investing into real estate, you need to look at a 360 side of a real estate. You cannot just say, hey, I'm going to compare this building with that building and it's enough. As a realtor, we can do that. But you need a contractor expertise to take a building and look at inside out of it. And say, hey, this building has this problem, or it will cost that much money to solve such problems. Then we have the other side is the management part of it. You owning a real estate, if we talk about income property, whether we talk about residential income property, commercial income property, you have to deal with your tenants on a daily matter. So you have to understand how to manage this tenant on a daily basis over a year period. So that's my expertise, is when an individual, like say Nick, wants to invest into real estate, I can not only help him find one property comparing with another, but I can really do the due diligence about the building itself and say, hey, Nick, you want to buy this building. This is the return on investment over next 5 years you're going to expect. And to get to that response, I need to have all these expertise,
Right.
And
because we just say, okay, we're going to have 10 doors and each one's paying $1,000. So, there's $10,000 a month. We don't think about all the other things, and may have to redo these kitchens, we may have to redo that.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to look at every aspect of real estate. I want to ask you, Andrew, Nick, you mentioned to me you have your fourplex.
Yes.
I'm going to talk about this in a bit, but I want to ask you, Andrew, what made you stay away from real estate?
No, I don't, I guess just I wouldn't expect you to go into the operating room and start performing surgery. And I don't have any expertise. I don't have any knowledge. I've heard it's a great form of investment, but
Did you want to get into it?
Yeah, always. But it's just I'm not good at doing things I'm not good at.
All right.
I like what you said, because I work with a lot of doctors who do a lot of seminars and presentations. They travel. I have one doctor traveled to Australia and then Europe. He doesn't have that time, energy, or that patience to get into it, because it's a messy job. It's not something you're going to like it every day. But I work with these individuals, and what I do is I help them get into real estate, build their portfolio, and at the same time, take zero stress about it.
Right.
So that's my experience.
And how does somebody start? When you start should your first building be a 4-plex, 6-plex, 10-plex? Is it
Start
how much
small
money
and
do you
grow.
have? Like, how do you multiply this? I've seen people who have done it, and I'm kind of like, I'm always curious, what do they start with?
One of the biggest problem as a realtor I learned is that when people wants to buy their first home, they often look at like the comfort they're going to have, and not the return on investment. So they sometimes go beyond their budget, or they max out their budget on their first home they purchase, and they want to buy a single family home. Being in Canada, I'm an immigrant. I come from Bangladesh, and immigrants that come to Canada, they need to buy something. They need to start with a home, right? And one of the problem you will often face is that where to start. As a Canadian or Canadian immigrant, I have to say we're so fortunate. Like if you come from Bangladesh and say you go to Bangladesh and you want to buy a home, even I want to buy a home, I have to come up with the total money. If it's
I gotta pay the whole thing.
whole thing, banks don't
Take
want to
it
give you
more.
any lending. So, and no one is there to help you with the down payment.
Right.
Where being in Canada, we're so fortunate, I have to say.
Can I ask you a question? Sorry,
Yes, of course.
Why do they do that? Is there a reason?
It's the system.
The system's like
Yeah,
that.
it's been always
It's
like
not a financial way. There's nothing behind it.
It's
more-
not in the standard, because not everybody can get approval for a loan. Not everybody has a proper income they're declaring, because a lot of people may be making a high income but they're not declaring it to the government. So that's why most often you will see, not most often, almost 99% of the transaction, I would say, where people are coming up with the total money to buy the property, whether it's $1 million or 10 million, you got to come up with the total money down. Where being in Canada, that's one of the things I have to say, is that first-time home buyers, we can benefit from putting lower down payment. We can benefit from having a flexibility to have whether 25 years to pay our mortgage. And there's other programs like getting your welcome tax back and stuff.
The banks are throwing money at people.
Of course,
for
of course.
For real estate, for mortgage.
Yes, remember, if you look at a real estate, we're talking about income property, not owner-occupied home, because you have to differentiate these two types of property. Owner-occupied property can have any value, can be in any location, can be. It's not about return on investment. It's strictly about the comfort.
Right.
And what my suggestion as a realtor, as an expert in the real estate industry, is to start with a rental property. Although you want to have that comfort, maybe make that your second or third home. So speaking of you, where to start from, I would say you did a smart thing. You bought a 4-plex. You know, as a first-time home buyer, you can buy up to 4-plex, and you can put lower down payment, and you can take benefit of first-time home buyers package. And that's amazing, because what you can do is you can
You're
buy
talking about as a home or as an investment? I mean,
as an
both.
investment.
Right.
So you're buying a 4-plex, so you're occupying a lot of 4-plex. It's a term we use in some places not. So I'll say any building that it has 4 doors. So you occupy one, the other 3 you can rent it out, and you can generate an income out of it. Now, speaking of investment properties versus owner-occupied properties, you have to understand that one property can generate layers of streams of income, I would say. And one of the income would be collecting rents. A lot of people don't look at that. Another would be paying off your debt. So you have a mortgage, $500,000 mortgage, you're paying every month. First paycheck you're giving it to your house is the down payment. Just the way your boss will give you a check, you're giving it to your house. Now you're the boss of the house. And then as you're paying your monthly payments, part of it is going into principal. So you're basically every month putting a paycheck to the house. Hey, you did a good job, here's a paycheck. And then there is another. Population is growing, city is doing new improvement in your area, there's an appreciation value. The value of the property is going up. So you see, there is right there, we're talking about 3 incomes.
Right.
So you basically, by investing into real estate, you're going and making 2 other people similar like you, and making all 3 people go to work next day. You know, so it's kind of like that. By owning an income property, you can do that.
Right.
And as I said it, you know, starting with a 4-plex, you're getting that habit of owning an income property, understanding how to deal with rentals, and it gets you habit.
Is
going
the idea
forward.
to go from 4 to 6 to 15 to 20? Is there a a formula.
And I heard about also once after a couple of years, you pull out money from one, you keep it, but you pull out money from one to put down the down payment for the next.
Yes, that's the another thing I'm going to get into is that after a 5 years term, say you're refinancing, you bought your first home, you have 25 years amortization to pay it off, but your interest rate will be fixed for a certain time. So say up to 5 years. End of 5 years, this interest rate has to be reevaluated. So by that time, you paid off more of your debt and your property value went up in value. So what happens is you can go to the same bank and say, my property is no longer worth $500,000. Now it's worth $800,000. Let's base the new mortgage on $800,000, and from that, give me whatever remaining equity after paying debt. So what happens is this extra equity, you can put it in another income property, and this is where you can start with a 6-plex, 8-plex, and there's much more options. You know, you
But
can.
is it bad that you're sort of never paying down the mortgage essentially because you're
As an investor perspective, we don't want to pay off our mortgages. We don't care about the interest rate.
right?
We don't care about the amortization period.
And the interest rates have been at historical lows for
Yeah,
how many years now?
a decade actually.
Yeah.
Since 2007, 8, it started going. And if you look in the 1980s, it was in the 18%, 21%.
Any chance that it ever goes up there again? No.
I don't think so.
Or even
I
at
cannot
6 or
speak for
7?
future.
It's kind of.
Yeah, there's a possibility it will go up. I worked for many banks in the past. I'm not going to name them, but I worked for many banks, and there's a huge chance that the interest rate will go up with time. Maybe not over next year, but maybe over next 5 years, or maybe over next decade.
In the 1970s, my father was in the finance business, and he was giving second mortgages. So the banks were giving 18%, and the second mortgages, they were paying 25, 27%. It's crazy. And now we're paying 3.5%. I mean,
Yeah.
So the name of the game is duplication, and always, like, is there? I heard there was a formula, minimum 12 doors where it pays off itself and you make money. Is that accurate?
Not really. I bought buildings at $65,000 in heart of Montreal, and a lot of people would say, "Where did you find it?" And I bought it about 4 years back, not very long ago. One of the things you have to understand when you are investing into real estate, paying debt and rental income is very stable. You cannot pay off more than 20% over a 1 year period, maybe, depending on the term of your mortgage. Where collecting rent, if it's a residential, there is Régie de bâtiment, Régie de logement in Quebec. So they protect your rent increase. So you cannot just suddenly increase very high. But where you can make money is the appreciation value. Think about you bought a building, and right next to it, they're building a metro.
Yeah.
The property value will go up. This is where you have like absolute benefit to take advantage of. So what I do is I always look proactively into an area where we need to invest. Say Andrew wants to invest into an income property, and he's like, okay, Sudha, find me a location where we can buy an apartment building where this appreciation value will go up. It might not necessarily be the best place to invest, but as an investor, you have
Like
to look
Park
at the
X,
return.
I think Park
Park
X. I
extension.
think Park X is going to be booming.
Yeah, Park Extension. I want to talk.
Already the prices have gone up.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
look at
Since the university,
Saint Henri and that whole.
Saint Henri is already up there. It's
but
it's
it
too
started
late.
off. It was slums. I mean,
Yeah.
it was.
I bought a condo next to Griffintown for $130,000, and
How long ago was this?
2011 when they announced Griffintown project,
Mhm.
and it was also a new build construction. It's just that
A lot of it is timing. I'm assuming.
exactly
When did you buy your first property?
2006.
Okay, now we're 2019, and how many properties do you have?
I don't want to say this on air, but I think I own enough to sit back and
Yeah.
relax. And I'm telling you, if I want to take an early retirement, I'm ready. But that's not my goal. My
Right.
goal is to, because I work with investors. I have investors pretty much. I would say I have in Toronto, New York City, Thailand, Chile, Morocco, Japan, China. So these investors who have properties in Quebec, they want their assets to grow.
Mhm.
And the vision I give them is that work with me until you turn 65 when you're ready for retirement.
That's when you pull out everything,
Yeah,
or
then you
cash
pull
out,
out,
or you
yeah.
sell.
Exactly. You can sell it to another investor within the circle, because often the purchase is with 2 or 3 investors together. And if you don't want to continue, then you can sell your share to one of the partners.
Better off having few higher end or being a slumlord?
Good question. Yeah, that's true.
If somebody wants to buy an apartment building, and if they're not ready to take headache, my suggestion is to start with a 16 doors and more. And one of the reasons is because you can have a live-in janitor.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, when you have a live-in janitor, you have to give them a unit. So your income is going to drop a bit. So that's why 16 door is very ideal to start with live-in janitors. But if that's not the situation in your case, I recommend you start with a 6-plex. The year after, you build 8-plex, and maybe sell or refinance both of them and get a 26 unit the year after. And then you can have one janitor looking after all 3 properties. That's what I did. What made difference in my
So the idea is the money works for you.
Yeah.
You duplicate it. You grow with the idea or intent that at 65 you could all sell it out, cash out, and basically live off it, or keep it as a salary.
Yeah. I want to share a secret. A lot of people, they are concerned because you talked about like when you take out equity, sometimes you're worried that you have to pay interest on it. Or if you sell your home, you're sometimes concerned that, oh my God, I have a high income now, I have to pay taxes on it. How to reduce such situations. One of the things about real estate, that say you have a beautiful building, generates a lot of income, you can take the income out of it and buy another building that is in distressed position, and by doing so you're just building 2 assets that are going to work again. You have the collecting rent, you have the debt paid, and the appreciation. So you have 3, now you have 6 layers of streams of income. And what happens is that your income drops because you take that extra income and you repairing the deteriorating property. So your income becomes an expense,
Right.
and you pay lower taxes over time. So that's one way you can keep your taxes low, but your property and your assets will go with time.
So I think the bottom line is
Yeah.
get good advice, because there's so many options, and the average investor knows really nothing about it. Just like you wouldn't pull out your own tooth or do your own vasectomy, I think it's good to get help and know what you're doing.
Absolutely. Advice is important, and one of the things is that there's market is bombarded with a lot of people who don't have proper qualifications. They might have a degree, they might have a paper, but they're not passionate.
Experiences.
Yeah.
Is
Passion is
I'd
very
rather
important.
I'd rather work with somebody who's bought these buildings, manages them, has got their feet wet in doing it, than somebody who's maybe done it in theory, maybe sells them, but has actually never managed one.
Nick, I want to mention to you this. Recently, I had a client with whom I spoke, and he got scared that I do all these things. He's like, "Oh my God, you're not just a realtor. You do this, that." I'm like, when you have to go after an investment property, you don't have 10 months to bring a realtor,
Right.
bring a contractor, bring a property manager to analyze a property. It will take long time, and you lose out on opportunities. So you need to work with somebody who can do this work for you before you start spending time on it. And as an investor, your job is not to go do due diligence on every property. It's to work with professionals like doctors. You want to work with the doctor, you want to work with the self-defense expert. Why? Because that's not your expertise. You need someone else's expertise to use for yourself. And that's my suggestion, is that there's a lot of people avoid that, and that creates complications over time.
So how do you typically find the good locations to invest in?
I'm going to tell you a top secret.
Wait. Location.
It gets to there, yeah. Well, one of the ways to do is that, don't forget, if we talk about any city or any subway system, they all look at a long-term plan. They look at, okay, in 2020 we have to get this track done. In 2022 we have to have 2 more stations. Look at those
especially
plans.
in this
Sure,
city,
yeah.
there's so much extension of the metro systems and light rails and all that stuff happening.
Let me tell you a short story. A client of 2 of my investors. This one was, I did a transaction with one from Toronto and one from New York. And I told them, okay, there's a property in Montreal North, and I'm going to invest on it. Are you ready? And they're like, Montreal North? Because one of the investor who lives in Toronto, he used to live in Montreal before. And he got scared of Montreal North. I said, you don't have to worry, you know what I'm doing. And he invested with us. And we went to Notary in the month of July. And in August, our new elected mayor announced that pink line, all the way from Lachine to Montreal North. Right away, the similar properties in Montreal North went 100,000 up in value.
Wow, that's
So that's the magic you have to
so
apply.
it's timing and knowing what's going on in the city.
Having some insider information.
That's awesome.
You can buy something in Brossard right before Champlain Bridge is completed, you
Right.
know. But if you bought it before they just announced, you would be
better.
even better.
Yeah.
Good point.
Excellent.
So, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Have the Balls to talk about it. Suda, thank you so much for coming
Thanks so
on the
much.
show.
Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Thank you, Andrew.
And
Stay tuned for next episode where Nick does his own prostate exam.
yeah, I'm ready for it. Remember, have the balls
Whoa, I dropped my balls.
to talk about here, Suda. You can get to hit the balls.
Yeah.
All right, I
You can
get
hit
to
our
hit the balls.
Thanks.